In this video, we check out the Xinyi District at night. That's the district where Taipei 101 is located. This is the third day of our trip in Taipei. We had just visited Shifen and Shifen just before this. We went to a fancy restaurant here near the Taipei 101 building. It was actually my birthday, so my girlfriend had planned a birthday dinner for us. This is one of the many department stores in the area, but it's unique because it's right next to the 101 building. The restaurant we are going to is on the top floor of this building, so we were taking this elevator up. We weren't actually planning to come today, but we changed our plans. That's why we weren't dressed as nicely as most other people would be in going to this fancy restaurant. And you can see the fantastic view behind me of Taipei 101. So the restaurant is called Saffron 46, and it's, as the name implies, on the 46th floor of a building that has the view of Taipei 101. I've kind of made it a theme to get Indian food on my birthday. I often get it in Singapore. It's one of my favorite types of cuisine, and this restaurant was pretty good. I had some naan as well as some curry with a chicken biryani. Halfway through our meal, they moved us closer to the Taipei 101 building since the table in front of us had left. It was getting close to closing time, so you can see the bar here and the rest of the restaurant is pretty empty. To cap it out, we got drinks and then a ice cream. I'd say it mostly tasted like Indian food in Singapore. We have plenty of Indian food, and we actually live right next to Little India in Singapore. So we have quite a lot of choices of different styles of Indian food, including Muslim Indian food, which is unique to the Malaysia, Singapore, and maybe even Indonesia regions. So after dinner, you can see here we're walking in the Xinyi District. We're near Taipei 101, which you can see up above. Compared to my last trip, I wasn't actually in the Xinyi District at night, so I'm not sure how much has changed since 2017, but I had not seen any of it, so this was a real surprise to see how lively this district was. It's definitely a more high-end district, so if you're into shopping, I'd recommend to come here. And also compared to the Ximen district, I think there's a lot more places or a lot more hotels that are catering to higher end tourists and maybe business travelers. It's interesting to me, there were Christmas lights and there were some Christmas decorations around the district. Even though it was around mid-November, they had them up already. I'm not sure quite how much Taipei celebrates Christmas. In Japan, it's a holiday mostly for couples, and then it's marketed as a holiday where you get KFC, that's Kentucky Fried Chicken, and Kentucky Fried Chicken sells essentially like turkeys on Thanksgiving on Christmas Day in Japan. If you know how Christmas is celebrated in Taipei, let me know in the comments below. So here we're continuing down this shopping street. I really had no idea on my first trip that this district was so lively and full of shops. I'd say it was a more high-end district, comparable to something like maybe Ginza or perhaps Omotesando in Tokyo. Or perhaps closer to Shibuya nowadays, which has moved upmarket. It used to be more youth-focused, but since then they've built a lot of malls there that have taken it upmarket. Since we had both lived in Japan, we couldn't help but make comparisons to Japan during this trip in Taipei. In my original trip in 2017, it was one of the first Asian countries I visited besides the Philippines and Japan, so to me, I didn't really draw that many parallels to Japan since everything was different. In this trip, I noticed some similarities in terms of the architecture of the modern buildings, and then also just going around Taipei, you have the convenience stores. It's really convenient to get food or just drinks anywhere. It's felt super safe no matter where we were in the city. It was really clean. So overall, I had an even better impression of Taipei from my first trip in 2017. Actually, even in that trip, I love Taipei, and so this was a surprise to like it even more after this second trip here. So the first part of this video had more quick cuts between the clips here, but to show more of this area, this clip is extended just to give a feel of what it would be like to walk through this area if you were here. This had to be one of the longest shopping streets I've ever seen. You can see here a giant Christmas tree, so from my impression, Christmas must be a pretty big thing here, and it might be more of a commercial holiday like it is in Japan with just tons of fanfare in malls and in sales around Christmas. The weather during this trip was fantastic. It was basically t-shirt weather during the day, and then at night maybe you needed a jacket, but it was not too cold just walking around either way. So in one of my videos I saw somebody with a pet pig, and in this video I'm seeing somebody with a pet cat, which is pretty interesting. I didn't even know you could walk cats like this. It must be fairly unusual because everyone was looking at this guy walking the cat. Again, if you know if it's a normal thing to walk a cat in Taiwan, let me know below. So at this point we had walked from around the Taipei 101 area all the way to an MRT or a train station that would take us back to Ximen station. I had just recognized this place at this point as a place I had been before on my original trip. We actually come back here on our last day in Taipei to check it out during the day as well. So this pretty much wraps up our longest day so far in the trip. The next day is actually arguably even busier with a lot of activities. Looking back, I had recorded way too much footage on this day, probably 2 hours all in all. Definitely made it challenging to sift through all the footage afterwards. If you're enjoying the series so far, feel free to like and subscribe, as I plan to grow this channel with more travel related content.